The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of the upscale Glendale Hills community, where every gate was guarded and every face carefully scanned. Residents waved to one another in passing, joggers stuck to their daily routes, and security guards patrolled with clipboards and radios, making sure everything remained exactly as the neighborhood expected, predictable, polished, and pristine. But for Andre Wallace, 42, CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech firm and owner of one of the most expensive properties in the enclave, something about today felt slightly off. Asterisk, he had just returned from a brutal 3-day cross-country investor tour, running on barely 4 hours of sleep and the last sips of lukewarm airport coffee. As his matte black Tesla rolled silently up to the gate of his own estate, he tapped the familiar code into the keypad one he had programmed himself, tied to his name, ID, and home system, but nothing happened. No click, no buzz, no welcome, just the subtle silence of denial. Seconds later, a security guard began briskly approaching his window, his right hand hovering near the radio on his chest, like something was wrong. Asterisk, "Sir, this is private property." "State your business," the guard said with authority, squinting into the Tesla as if Andre's face didn't match anything on file. Andre leaned out slightly. "I live here. 224 North Crest, the Wallace residence." The guard didn't move, didn't soften. He just looked down at a clipboard and back at Andre with suspicion that cut sharper than words. "ID, please." Asterisk, Andre was stunned. This wasn't just a temporary guard. This was the regular shift, one he'd seen dozens of times pulling rounds past his home. As he handed over his license and corporate ID, his eyes caught movement to his left. A middle-aged white woman walking her fluffy designer dog had paused mid-stride. She eyed him for a few seconds before walking over like she was joining a conversation. "She was never invited to, asterisk. That house belongs to the Wallaces," she said matter-of-factly to the guard. Then turning to Andre, her tone tilted into condescension. "You must be lost," asterisk. Andre let out a tired, bitter chuckle. "I am Wallace," he said. But she raised her brows like she was humoring a joke. "Oh, I see. You mean you work there?" Asterisk, a second guard showed up, notified by the first through radio, and the unease doubled. Andre could feel it in his chest now, not just frustration, but something heavier, something familiar. His jaw locked. He reached for his phone slowly and unlocked it. Asterisk, he didn't yell. He didn't argue. He quietly opened the camera and began recording. The gates remained closed. His name remained unrecognized. His presence, once welcome, now suspicious. The woman whispered something to the second guard, and though he couldn't hear it, the effect was clear. That's when Andre knew this moment wasn't an accident. It was a message. Asterisk, inside his Tesla, Andre kept the camera rolling. The dashboard lights glowed faintly as he adjusted the angle to capture the security guards in full frame. His voice was calm, but layered with quiet power. "This is what it looks like when you own the house, the land, the title, and the name on the system, but your face still makes them uncomfortable." He zoomed in slightly as one guard spoke into his radio and the other continued glancing between Andre's license and his own suspicion. The gate's stillness wasn't technical, it was intentional. Asterisk seconds ticked into minutes. Behind the windshield, Andre's face was motionless. He wasn't unfamiliar with these kinds of moments. Microaggressions dressed as just procedure. Inquiries wrapped in false concern. But here, at his own front gate, it hit differently. He was the founder of a cybersecurity empire, the very architect behind the encrypted system protecting this neighborhood. And yet, he had to prove himself on camera like a stranger trying to break in. Asterisk, after nearly 10 minutes, a black SUV marked with the logo of the security firm pulled up. A supervisor exited and immediately recognized Andre. "Mr. Wallace, my deepest apologies. This was a mix-up. The guards didn't realize." Andre held up a hand. He wasn't interested in excuses. The gate finally opened with a mechanical hum, and the guards stepped aside, their posture tense. The woman with the dog had already vanished down the street. As if none of it had happened, asterisk Andre drove through the gate without another word. The Tesla glided up the curved driveway, past the hedges and stone fountain, and came to a quiet stop in front of the house he designed. He sat still. For a moment he didn't get out. He played the footage back on his phone, watching his own face as a stranger would. Calm, composed, questioned. Asterisk inside, the house greeted him with silence. Modern, open plan, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows and smart home systems, every inch earned by years of sacrifice and brilliance. He poured a glass of water, set his phone on the kitchen island, and watched the screen. His finger hovered over the delete button. He could just let it go, move on. But something told him not to. Asterisk, this wasn't just about one bad encounter. It wasn't about guards or neighbors or a gate. It was about what it meant to be seen and still not recognized. To be successful and still be treated with suspicion. Andre thought about his staff, his clients, his family. If he let this pass silently, what message would he be sending? He sat there for a long time. Then he backed up the video to the cloud and created a new folder. Proof. It was time to make this moment count. Asterisk, the following morning. Andre stood in his living room, dressed in a tailored gray suit. The glass walls let the sunlight pour in as he looked over the seating arrangement one more time. The chairs were positioned facing the large smart TV screen. On the console beneath it, a silver tray held glasses of water, and next to it a small remote. Everything was deliberate. Asterisk, he had called an emergency meeting not just with the head of the security company, but also the entire HOA board. 2. Journalists he trusted from local networks were invited, along with a civil rights attorney and a retired city councilwoman. Every person in the room had influence, and every one of them needed to hear what had happened. Asterisk, as guests arrived, Andre greeted them with firm handshakes and short, polite nods. Once everyone was seated, he stepped to the front, clicked the remote, and played the video on the screen. The room went still. They watched as the footage played the moment he was questioned, the neighbor's interruption, the guards ignoring the ID. There was no narration, just reality. Asterisk, when it ended, the silence was heavier than stone. One board member shifted uncomfortably and cleared his throat. This feels like a misunderstanding. Asterisk, Andre's gaze narrowed. It always does, until it happens to you. Another board member mumbled, let's not escalate things unnecessarily. Andre cut in, voice firm. This isn't about escalation. It's about accountability. Asterisk, he walked to the side table, picked up a manila folder, and held it up. This is a termination letter for the current security firm. Effective immediately. It'll be replaced by a team trained in proper identification, de-escalation, and implicit bias. His words landed like a hammer in a church. And let me be very clear, if it happens again to me or to anyone else in this neighborhood, I won't just fire a firm. I'll take this story national. And I promise you, the optics won't be kind. Asterisk, no one argued. No one dared. The silence wasn't fear. It was awareness finally dawning, finally uncomfortable, and finally real. News traveled faster than Andre expected. Within hours of the emergency meeting, a short clip from the presentation, specifically the moment the neighbor said, "You must be lost," was circulating on social media. One of the local reporters present had posted a short summary on X, tagging it with hashtag while black and hashtag gatekeepers. By noon, the video had crossed 200,000 views. By 6 p.m., national news networks picked it up. Andre hadn't planned on going viral. He only wanted to confront a system in his own neighborhood. But now, he was at the center of a national conversation. Asterisk, he sat in his office watching the mentions explode. Messages flooded his inbox, some from friends, some from strangers, many from fellow professionals of color who'd faced similar treatment. I thought I was the only one message read. This happened to my husband in our own driveway, said another. People shared stories, screenshots, videos. It was like Andre's experience had cracked open a door that had been locked. For too long, asterisk, not everyone was supportive. Some called him dramatic. Others accused him of stirring up trouble for attention. Why didn't you just show your ID and move on? They asked. But Andre knew better. He didn't owe anyone silence for their comfort. He responded not with anger but clarity. In one live interview on a major network, he said calmly, "If I someone with a recognizable name, resources, and a documented residence can be treated like an outsider, imagine what happens to those who don't have a camera or a platform." This is not about gate codes. It's about conditioned assumptions. Asterisk, the clip from the interview was clipped, shared, quoted, and even parodied by late-night hosts. But beneath the noise, a real shift was happening. Other CEOs reached out privately. Some admitted they'd had similar experiences. Some pledged to reevaluate their neighborhood contracts with private security. Some invited Andre to speak internally at their firms. It became clear, this wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. Asterisk, in the days that followed, Andre kept receiving messages from people he'd never met. A young black architect from Atlanta, a Nigerian-American surgeon in Boston, a high school student in Chicago who'd been stopped in his own apartment complex more than once. The stories had patterns, different cities, same assumptions. And Andre began documenting them all. Asterisk, weeks later, Andre's Tesla rolled up to the same gate where it all started. This time, the gate recognized him instantly and slid open without hesitation. A new guard stood on duty, young, professional, and trained in equity protocols. "Good afternoon, Mr. Wallace," he said with a nod, his voice respectful and measured. Andre nodded back, not smugly, but thoughtfully. The system had changed. Maybe not everywhere, but here it had. And that mattered. Asterisk, inside, everything looked the same, the clean marble floors, the glass walls, the quiet hum of the smart system. But the atmosphere felt different. It wasn't the house that had changed. It was Andre. He walked past the kitchen, where he'd first reviewed the footage, and into his study where new emails were waiting. One stood out. "I saw your video. Same thing happened to my husband. Thank you for speaking up." Asterisk, later that week, Andre was invited to speak at a corporate leadership summit. In a sleek boardroom surrounded by executives, he stood at the front of the room with the same quiet composure he had that day at the gate. "This isn't just about what happened to me," he began. "It's about how we build systems that quietly decide who belongs and who doesn't." That gate didn't fail. It did exactly what it was programmed to do, doubt me. "So now we reprogram," asterisk, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't point fingers, but every sentence landed with weight. Executives who had never been questioned in their own neighborhoods suddenly understood the cost of that privilege. Andre's words were more than a speech. They were an awakening. Asterisk, when the applause came, it wasn't loud, it was respectful, almost reverent. Andre sat back down as his phone vibrated again with a new message from a stranger. Another story, another face, another silent gate waiting to be challenged. He smiled, not because he had won, but because the gate wasn't silent anymore.